Hello everyone, welcome to Grandstand Sports Data, and I have one question for everyone, and that is, are you ready for the ultimate MLB betting experience? As you know, the season's only kicking off in a few days, and in this video we'll be presenting a complete guide to betting Major League Baseball. We'll teach you everything you need to know to get started, from the most popular bets handicappers place to how to actually handicap the sport on multiple levels. So buckle up and get ready to hit the grandstands, because we're about to take you one step closer to being an educated baseball bettor. So let's start with the basics of betting baseball. Baseball is one of the most popular sports to bet on, and there are a lot of different betting options available. In this section, we'll cover the basics of betting on baseball, including the more popular bets that handicappers tend to place. We'll go over the different types of bets and some strategies that can help you make smarter bets. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced handicapper, this video will help you get started with betting on baseball. So let's start with the most popular baseball bets. First is the money line bet. This is a bet on a team to win the game regardless of the margin of victory or how many innings it takes. Money line bets in baseball are the same as any other money line, and the bet only pays off if the team you bet on wins the game. When it comes to money line betting in baseball, it is not enough to simply look at win and loss percentage to determine your success as a bettor. Instead, you as a handicapper must look at break-even win percentage or return on investment in order to accurately judge whether a bet was profitable or not. When it comes to moneyline bets, make sure to bet heavy favorites. In the MLB regular season, if an away team is favored by minus 201 or more, bet the away money line. This system represents a 12.3% rate of return in the last decade. Totals. Bookmakers set a number that they think the two teams playing will score in total, which is called the total bet. If you bet the over, you are betting the teams will score more than the number of bookmakers set. If you bet the under, you are betting that the teams will score less than the number the bookmakers set. Bookmakers offer baseball totals as straight minus 110 odds on either the over or the under. And as you might expect, baseball totals are offered in increments of half runs. Please note that extra innings do count toward the total. For totals, we have another system. In the MLB regular season, a home team is the underdog and the total is less than 7. Bet under the total. This system has a return on investment of 5.6% in the last decade. Finally is the run line. Sportsbooks have noticed that some people don't like betting on extreme money lines, so they don't get a big enough payoff if they bet on the favorites. And if they bet on the underdog, it's like betting on a long shot, which means they could get a large payout, but it's very unlikely. The result is the run line. The run line is like a hybrid between a point spread and a money line, and it operates according to these rules. 1. A favorite run line is set to minus 1.5. An underdog run line is set to plus 1.5. Please remember, odds makers adjust the payout schedule to balance the risk and return of a bet. So, in a run line, if an underdog is given a run and a half, they are more likely to win, but the bet pays less, while the favorite will pay more, but is less likely to win. This helps the bookmakers stay profitable, while also giving bettors different options. Next will be other popular baseball bets. But first we're going to start with a stipulation. Pitching action. Most bets on the outcome of a baseball game are conditional on the listed starting pitchers actually starting the game. Even if the listed pitcher throws just one pitch, the bet is still considered valid. If either pitcher fails to start, however, the bet is called no action. And no action means your bet is effectively canceled. 5-inning lines. Baseball doesn't have a halftime like football or basketball, so bookmakers created something called a 5-inning line that works like a halftime line. This 5-inning line is basically like betting on half of the game, and the total is usually around half of the game's total. The money line is usually close to the game money line, and the 5-inning run line is usually half a run instead of a run and a half. When the home team makes 3 outs in the 5th inning, all bets on the 5-inning line are resolved. The 5-inning money line is a better indicator of the quality of the starting pitchers than the game money line, since the game money line must factor in for bullpen and closers. Team scoring totals. Team total bets are a way to bet on a game without having to wager on the outcome itself. Instead of betting on a team's money line or run line, or betting on the overall game total, you can bet on the total score of one team. This is a good option if you have a strong opinion on how one side of the pitcher versus batter matchup will play out, but not necessarily the other way. Handicapping baseball. In the next few illustrations, I will talk to you about handicapping baseball games. Fundamental and technical handicapping, along with some stats to include in basic models. In this segment, I will discuss the important factors of each type of handicapping and how they can be used in combination to maximize your chance of success when betting on baseball. First, let's start with the fundamental factors. The fundamental factors are more of non-stats, non-statistics, and more of feel of the game. First would be rest and fatigue. Always bet on rest. The only time teams get more than a day off is during the All-Star break in the second week of July, or around the second week of July. Nevertheless, there are opportunities to bet on teams that are more rested than their opponents. We have another system for you. When the home team has more rest than the visiting team, and the game total is 9 or more, bet the over. This system has a 58% win percentage over the last 5 years. Next will be home-away splits. MLB has one of the smallest home field advantages in sports, but that doesn't mean we ignore this factor entirely. Please remember, home games mean stability, no travel, and sleeping in your own bed. Outfielders are already acclimated to their home ballpark and all its imperfections. And finally, GMs build teams to fit their ballpark. This is all a home factor. Next would be recent performance. Assessing hot and cold streaks. The hot hand question is an idea that some people have that if a baseball player has gotten a few hits in a row, they will be more likely to get a hit in their next at-bat. Or even the flip side, a hitter on a cold streak should be due for a hit. Scientists have tried to see if this is true, but it's too hard to prove. Some people think that luck is just part of it, but others think that things like concentration, preparation, and also the park in which the game is being played can also affect players' performance. At the end of the day, all these things can have the same effect as if it was just plain luck. Next, team streaks. Bettors try to jump on teams on a winning streak and attempt to ride the hot hand. You must remember as a sports bettor that every game is independent. In such a long season, teams will win and they will also go on losing streaks, just like a sports handicapper. And finally, the last bullet in another system that we have, Fade Triple H. Triple H standing for the home hot hand. So if a home team is on a 4-game winning streak, you bet the away money line. This system would have made money in 9 of the last 12 years and comes up in the odds almost 100 times per year. Here are some more fundamental factors. Weather. Weather has 2 variables, wind being one of them. Wind blowing into its home plate creates less runs, whereas wind blowing out produces more runs. Next would be temperature. The higher the temperature, this makes the ball travel further, resulting in higher run totals. Where when it's more cold, this results in less runs. Next would be the rule changes. The biggest rule changes this year in 2023 are pitch clock, defensive shift limits, and bigger bases. When comparing spring training in 2022 to spring training in 2023, there has been almost a half a run scored per game increase and a full stolen base attempt more per game. This is pointing to more offensive output and may result in more overs for the total. But listen, be careful. If the totals are set high early, be ready to bet the unders just in case. Ballparks or venues. A lot of handicappers look at the dimensions and shape of the outfield. Generally, smaller parks with shorter fences will favor hitters, while bigger parks with deeper fences favor pitchers. Also, look at the types of surfaces in the ballpark. Grass fields tend to favor pitchers, while artificial turf can favor hitters. Next would be technical factors, and these are more your statistics and some of the stats that you may use into a model, even though we'll go deeper into that in the presentation. So remember, don't look at traditional statistics at all, like batting average, home runs, ERA, or even wins and losses for a pitcher. Chances are these are already baked into the line. You're looking for players or teams who give their team a better chance at winning than the odds makers give them credit for. You should be considering these statistics instead when you look at baseball technical analysis. First would be scoring, runs per game. In 2022, the runs per game sat at 4.28, where in 2021, they sat at 4.53. In 2020, they were at 4.65, and in 2019, they were at 4.83. So run totals have been on a slow decline. Just note that the recent rule changes in 2023 could affect this stat and may be the most important when evaluating on multiple levels. Finally, this is a good predictive stat when building a model because it can draw up outcomes for money lines, all of the totals, which is full game, 5 inning, and team totals, and also run lines. Next would be technical factors for batting. OPS, or on base plus slugging. This is used to measure a baseball player's offensive value. It is calculated by taking the sum of the two stats, on base percentage and slugging percentage. OPS is important to handicapping baseball because it gives an indication of how successful a batter is at getting on base and hitting for extra bases. Next, BABIP, or batting average on balls in play. And this statistic is used to measure a hitter's ability to get hits on balls that they are hit in fair territory. It is important for handicapping baseball because it can help you identify players who are either getting lucky or unlucky when it comes to hits, and can give you an indication of whether or not the player's current performance is sustainable or not. So let's continue with some pitching technical factors. Starting pitches are the most dominant factor in any baseball game's outcome, and odds makers rely heavily on their recent performance to set the odds of any game. Strikeouts to walk ratio is the first one, and it's a measure of how many strikeouts a pitcher has compared to how many walks they have given up. It is important for handicapping baseball because it is a good indication of how well a pitcher can control the strike zone and minimize walks, which also lead to runs. Next would be walks per 9 inning. This is a statistic used to measure a pitcher's ability to limit the number of walks he gives up. It is important because it is an indication of how well a pitcher can control the strike zone and how effective he is at avoiding walks. A pitcher with a high walks per 9 will often struggle to get out of innings unscathed. On the other hand, a pitcher with a low walks per 9 will often be able to get out of innings without allowing a lot of runs. The next factor would be quality start percentage. And quality start percentage is an important statistic that measures a pitcher's ability to keep the opposing team from scoring many runs. It is calculated by dividing the number of quality starts by the total number of starts. A higher quality start percentage indicates a pitcher is more reliable and consistent when it comes to keeping runs off the board. If some of you don't know what quality starts means, it's when a pitcher pitches at least 6 innings and allows no more than 3 earned runs. The next factor would be WHIP, and this stands for walks plus hits per inning pitched. It is a statistic used to measure a pitcher's effectiveness in baseball. It is calculated by dividing the total number of walks and hits allowed by the number of innings pitched. It is important for handicapping baseball because it can provide an easy-to-understand measure of a pitcher's ability to limit base runners and prevent runs. A lower WHIP indicates that a pitcher is more effective at getting batters out and is thus more likely to win games. This stat is slowly replacing ERA. Next would be FIP, or fielding independent pitching. This is a statistic used to measure a pitcher's performance. It looks at a number of strikeouts, walks, hit by pitches, and home runs allowed by the pitcher, which are all controllable by the pitcher themselves and is independent of the defense behind them. This is important for handicapping because it can give an indication of how well a pitcher may perform in the future, even if their defense is not as good as it used to be or some good defensive players are out of the lineup. So next for handicapping is baseball modeling. What about modeling and what should be included in your baseball model? Well, first, you have to collect your data or statistics. This is the base of every model. You could use any statistics you want, but I provided a good starter pack back in the technical factors slides. Next, you should think about adding fundamental factors as well by putting a number on them. Some fundamental factors will already have numbers such as home and away splits, past performance, and even wind and temperature have numerical values. Also, try setting a number or tiers for ballparks. What I have done in the past is rank the highest scoring ballparks from highest to lowest in terms of runs scored, and then created tiers to symbolize a ballpark number. So for instance, Coors Field is always rated high when it comes to runs scored, so I would label them on a scale from 1 to 5, a 5. Whereas Tropicana Field has always had lower runs scored, so I would rank them a 1. So if you need guidance on where to go from here, this is step-by-step model building illustration from us at Grandstand Sports Data and how we build a model from top to bottom. Number 1, we collect and analyze data. This is what we just went over in the previous slide. Number 2, we develop the model. So using your statistics, we create a model that can accurately predict the future performance of a team or player. So this can be anything from regression analysis to Monte Carlo simulations. You can dig as deep as you want, but make sure the prediction output is bettable. Next would be confirming the model. This is testing the model's accuracy by comparing its predictions with actual results. The next step would be optimizing the model. So this is making adjustments to the model to improve its accuracy. This could also be done by assigning weights or comparing multiple models into one big model. Next, we deploy the model. This is putting the model into practice by using it to make predictions. This is where you'll add your predicted odds so you can compare them to the odds of the market to see if you have an actual betting edge or not. And finally, and most importantly, we track the model. Track the model's performance over time to ensure it will always be accurate. Next is bankroll management. Welcome to our bankroll management for baseball portion of the video. We will be covering the important topics of your initial deposit, sizing your bets, tracking your bankroll, and setting bankroll goals. We'll discuss the importance of each topic and provide steps to help you manage your bankroll in a safe and responsible way. The steps to managing your baseball bankroll. So gambling on baseball can be a fun and interesting way to make some extra money, but it's important to make sure you have the right bankroll budgeting in place to protect your investments. Here are the steps to managing your baseball bankroll. Number 1, you determine your initial bankroll. Before you start betting on baseball, it's important to determine how much money you're willing to invest. This should be an amount that you're comfortable with and can afford to lose without any financial hardship. We cannot stress this enough. You must bet responsibly. Number 2, bet size. Once you've determined your total bankroll, it's important to set betting limit. This limit should be a small percentage of your total bankroll and should be used for all of your baseball bets. This will help to ensure that you don't overspend and can maintain control over your gambling. Number 3, set assessment days. Once you've set a betting limit, it's important to manage your bankroll carefully. Make sure to track all of your wins and losses to ensure that you don't get overconfident or too aggressive with your betting. Number 4, consider long-term goals. When budgeting for baseball betting, it's important to consider your long-term goals. While it can be tempting to bet aggressively in the hopes of quick returns, it's important to remember that long-term success is often achieved through steady and consistent smart betting. Now we'll be covering sizing your bets. First is flat betting, which is when you bet the same amount for every bet. Most gamblers will tell you that using 1% to 2% of your bankroll will make the most sense and never bet more than 10 bets in one session. And a session would be like 1 day of games. Limiting your bets per session will minimize your risk of ruin, help you preserve your bankroll, and make it easier to evaluate on your assessment days. Another technique for sizing your bets is percentage betting. This is where you would take your total bankroll and break up your bets into percentage form. If you use this technique, assessment days must be daily or weekly at the most. If you start throwing around 5% plays after 1 day of losing, this can really puncture your bankroll. I cannot stress this enough. Your bankroll must be examined very often using this bet sizing strategy. Also, keeping records of your past results is extremely crucial when using percentage betting. Using past results will help you identify when a play is a 5% or only a 1%. This is not a strategy you can just wing and hope for the best. The final strategy, and probably the most notable to longtime handicappers, is the Kelly criterion. The whole premise behind the Kelly criterion is to maximize the profit from each bet. It's basically the percentage of total bankroll based on the perceived likelihood of an event happening. The best handicappers usually use what's called fractional Kelly, and it's Kelly criterion, but just broken down almost into fourths. My advice, or Grandstand Sports Data's advice, would be only use the Kelly criterion when you have a proven model that wins. Next would be tracking your bankroll. When tracking your bankroll, use anything you can from Excel, online documents, or even a notebook. You must include on the tracking document the bankroll amount, the time period, and all the days you will assess your progress. Assessment days should be placed far enough apart to evaluate your performance. Betting and handicapping should be held to a minimum on these days. Use assessment days to ask yourself the following questions. How well did you stick to your bankroll budget? What financial results and betting performance occurred in the time period? What is the current overall financial position? And do I need to adjust the bankroll? Please note this: never, and I mean never, adjust your betting amounts on non-assessment days. Finally, you must set financial goals. Know your why. Are you doing this for money? What about fun? Or do you think you even have an expert level of baseball knowledge? No matter the reason, you must set realistic goals that are smart, and by smart, we don't mean intelligent. That should already be assumed. Smart means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time specific. A good goal would be, I want to have at least an 8% rate of return this MLB season. Because it's specific, because there's a real number attached with the real deadline. It's measurable, because all you have to do is keep track of your rate of return over the season. It's achievable, even though it's extremely difficult. It's also relevant because it's your goal and it's not a tout trying to sell $1 million system on an overnight play. And it's also time specific because it's a season-long event. A goal that would not be smart would be, I want to make $1 million off of sports betting. Number one, it's not attainable, and it's almost like everyone wants to make $1 million off sports betting. But it also doesn't meet the SMART criteria of financial goals. So next is our baseball resources. This is where we're going to provide you with a few websites that can fulfill this whole presentation when it comes to either handicapping, finding out your best bets, finding a way to compare odds, and also analyzing your factors. So here's some of the baseball betting resources. Covers.com has a ton of handicapping content. You will see matchups, you'll see odds for different sports books or bookmakers, whatever you want to call them. They have tons of statistical analysis when it comes to matchups. You'll also see very similar on oddshark.com. This has also a ton of handicapping content. Next would be teamrankings.com, which has a lot of situational trends and also a lot of spread records as well. If you want to get into more of the fundamental factors like weather, dailybaseballdata.com has real-time weather and wind implications as well. And finally, in my go-to when it comes to stats for almost all sports, baseballreference.com. I call it the wide world of stats. And for baseball, they have an extensive amount of stats, all the way from batting average for teams, all the way down to umpires and what their over and unders are, and their strike zone calls. They have almost everything. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to this year's video of MLB Sports Betting 101, the ultimate guide for 2023. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more helpful betting tips and analysis. Don't forget to like, share, and comment if you found this video helpful. Until next time, stay safe and good luck on all of your baseball bets.